Hi, I'm Coach Clarissa, and today we're going to go through a core workout, specifically a deep core workout. So really working the transverse abdominis, the deep core muscles, the ones that are important for holding you upright and keeping your stomach flat and holding all your organs in. So we're going to start off with a core bridge march. This will get you kind of in tune with the lower part of the transverse abdominis, which is an area that a lot of women sometimes don't have a very good connection with. So with this one, we want to do reps in a slow and controlled manner, really focusing on drawing that pelvic floor up, drawing the transverse abdominis in, and then really making sure that we are maintaining a stable spine throughout the whole exercise. So with this one, you can do it in reps, you can do it for time, either one. You really just want to work within the space where you feel that really deep connection to those muscles. And once you kind of feel like you're going through the motions, you probably should stop the exercise because you are not targeting what you are trying to target. So this is a core exercise that's going to work transverse abdominis. So if you are working on building a smaller waist, if you're working on strengthening the transverse abdominis, if you're working on correcting anterior pelvic tilt, this is a good exercise for you. So you need a foam roller, and you're going to start with your hips elevated on the roller. So we want to lie down, and then we're going to press through the feet, raise the hips, and get that roller right on the sacrum, not on the lower back, but on the tailbone area. So like the back of our hip bones should be on the roller. All right, so as we do that, then we can feel if our pelvis is rotated forwards or rotated backwards. If you are feeling like there is a pinching in the lower back, your pelvis is probably rotated forwards, which is going to be very true if you have anterior pelvic tilt. This is going to be something you have to mindfully work on. So we're here, we have that roller under the tailbone. We want to put our pelvis into neutral. So we may feel like we have to tuck our tailbone. That's going to take the pressure off your lower back, so that pinch should go away. Now, this may be enough. This may be all you do, and just hold that, because to hold the pelvis neutral, we have to contract our core. So right here, you should feel that your core is drawn upwards and in. If that feels good and you feel strong and confident that you can add on, we're just going to start by raising one leg up, hold it. As you hold it, you should feel your core engage again. So coming in and up and down, just like when we do our breathwork exercises, right? And then go ahead and put that foot back down. If you're not feeling any kind of separation here or doming up, then we're going to take that other leg, bring it up, hold it, and then march it down. So same thing here. As we lower that leg, you really should feel all of this is engaging up, in, and down, not coming out into like a peak. We do not want that to happen. Okay, and then bring it up. So to help so that this doesn't dome out, we want to do our exhale as you're lowering. Because it's as we exhale that everything gets drawn together and contracted, like we're bracing. So inhale, draw the leg up, exhale, set it back down. And you're going to repeat this marching. You can do like up to 20 marches. And then, take a break before you do another set. But that is like going to help strengthen transverse abdominis and help also to correct anterior pelvic tilt. Then from there, we move into a hip raise with a yoga block. So when we press down through the inner arches of the feet and activate the inner thighs, that helps also to engage the pelvic floor. So we're doing that to fully engage the whole core in this bridge motion and make sure that we are engaging transverse abdominis and not just hinging from the spine. So with the hip raise with the block, you can do it for reps, you can do it for time. If you're doing reps, I would do between like 10 to 15. You really, really want to feel the head of the hamstrings engaging in this exercise, as well as feeling that deep core work.
So this is a floor bridge or a hip raise with a block. So the goal with the block is to place it in between the knees, and we're going to squeeze the block to help activate the pelvic floor. So we're starting, feet underneath the hips, and we want our feet about hips distance apart. We want to make sure that our spine is neutral, that we have that tiny arch in the lower back, but not a big one. So putting our pelvis into neutral. Then we're going to squeeze the block between the knees, activating the pelvic floor, making sure that that's all hollowed out. And then we're going to raise the hips, keeping the pelvis neutral. So we don't want to go into any kind of back extension. It's maybe a good cue to place your hands on your hip bones and make sure that the hips stay long here. If we feel that space in the hip crease shorten, our pelvis is not neutral and we need to bring it back to neutral. We also really want to make sure that we are pressing through the whole foot, the pinky toe, the big toe, the heel. If we're having weight distribution to either side of the foot, we need to focus very hard to correct that and make sure we're pressing through the entire foot. Squeeze that block between the knees to help keep the pelvic floor activated, and make sure that we're using transverse abdominis versus using rectus to keep the spine neutral. And then inhaling and exhaling and working in a range of motion.
And then from there, since our hamstrings are already kind of fired up in the bridge, we want to move into the 90-degree hamstring activation, which again, we're going to use that block to target the adductors, get the pelvic floor engaged, and then we are using some elevation, bring those knees to 90 degrees so that we can really activate the top of the hamstrings, which for a lot of women, especially if you have anterior pelvic tilt, tends to be a place that's a little bit lazy. So we want to feel these very strongly underneath the glutes and again in the transverse abdominis. This is another one you can do it for reps. If it's very hard, you're going to start at very low reps and work your way up to where you can do 10 to 15 at a time.
So this is an exercise. It's a 90-degree bent leg, hamstring, and pelvic floor activation. So it's really a great exercise to help correct anterior pelvic tilt and also to help pelvic floor dysfunction. So you'll need a bench and you'll need a block. And then you're going to scoot in towards the bench so that you have, there we go, so that your heels are resting on the bench and you have your knees and your hips are both at 90 degrees. Now, we are going to make sure that our back is flat against the floor. So if you have significant pelvic tilt, you probably will want to place a towel here so that you can press down into that towel. We don't want to have that big tilt, that big space that is super common with anterior pelvic tilt. So we want to do that, so that will help to activate the transverse abdominis, the lower part of the transverse abdominis, which is something that doesn't work very well when you have anterior pelvic tilt. So we're pressing down so that our pelvis is neutral. Like, we're not coming into posterior, we're just trying to find that neutral pelvis. You can do that by placing 2 fingers here on the front of your hips and making sure that you have space for 2 fingers. If you don't, and those fingers are squished, you probably are in anterior tilt. So bringing the sits bones up, contracting the transverse abdominis. Now, if you're here and you contract and you feel like it's doming, that is not your transverse working. That is the rectus working. So maybe we just work on relaxing here. We want this to be flat but strong. That's your transverse. There it is. So when that happens, you should feel that automatically your heels are pressing a little more into the bench here. Then we're going to grab our block. We're going to place it a long ways in between our knees. Now we're going to squeeze the block gently. That should further help to flatten out this bottom part of the core. Then you're going to dig your heels in. When you do that, you should feel there's a little more lift here in the pelvis, getting it more to neutral. And the lower part of your stomach should be nice and flat. Now, what we're going to do is come up into a tiny bridge, and you should feel your hamstrings light up. Here, the top portion, the proximal portion of the hamstring, and keeping that pelvis tipped where it should be. We're going to hold it and then lower back down very gently. So up, it's just a couple inches, and back down. If at any portion we feel like we're losing that contraction in the core, if we feel like our pelvis is tipping, we want to reset it, find all those connection points again. So make sure your back is flat, gripping the block, heels in, hamstrings on, lower core on, firm but not domed, and then press it up and lower back down. So you want to get probably like 2 to 3 sets of 10 of these. And that is our hamstring and pelvic floor activation.
And then from there, we move into a modified plank. With modified plank, I find that this particular variation is a little bit easier to really be in contact with your entire core, to draw it up, to draw it in, to draw everything all together, and really work on knitting that core back together. A plank, generally we are holding this, depending on how hard it is for you, 10 seconds, some maybe 5 seconds is enough. It just really depends on where your body's at. But holding it anywhere, from 5 to 10 seconds all the way up to maybe 30 or 40 seconds. There really is no reason to hold a plank past a minute. I promise it's not helping anything.
We're going to do a modified plank. So we've done the variation where we put our hands up on something, but this is going to be a knee variation. So I want you to walk your legs out so that your knees are not under your hips. You want those legs back. And then bring your shoulders so that they're over your wrists. And then I want you to press through the shoulders, find that space, and feel your core contract. So this version, I think, is pretty hard. So the goal is to hold this with that nice neutral spine. Everything's contracted. So you're drawing the pelvic floor up. You're drawing the core down from the ribs and then in from the sides, and everything is pulled together just like when we do the core bracing, except we're in a modified plank position. Goal is to hold this, 30 seconds is good, up to 1 minute. There's really no reason to hold it beyond 1 minute, and that is a modified plank variation.
But that is our deep core workout for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you do, please let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you hated it, love to know that as well. Anyway, have a beautiful rest of your day. Be sure to like and subscribe. That way you can be sure to get notified of our next workout.
Watch it. Watch it.